Hi, everyone. It's great to be in Toronto. Great opportunity to come back for a couple of days and see the city and see my mom, who's here tonight. Hi, Mom. And tonight I want to talk to you a little bit about my journey to discover the profile of a Plenty of Fish dater. So first, my profile. Few things about myself. I went to the University of Waterloo and studied engineering, and my first profession was as a hardware engineer. And then, as Jason mentioned, I spent, I think it was 14 and a half years in EdTech, which included founding 2 startups, and then being at Top Hat, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, for 5 years as the Chief Product Officer. And then I moved across Canada to become CEO of Plenty of Fish. A couple of other things about myself. I really like to travel to places that grow really good wine and drink that wine. We've got that in common. I love to go to the ballet, and also I love podcasts. I listen to Masters of Scale. I really like economics podcasts and Radiolab. Huge fan of Radiolab. One last thing, which I will not put on my Plenty of Fish profile, is that I've been married almost 15 years, because if you do, you will be redirected to Ashley Madison. That's not a joke, we actually do that. We get like a rev share thing. In terms of the Plenty of Fish profile, it's really big. So show of hands of anyone who has used Plenty of Fish in the past. Don't be shy. All right. Anyone who knows someone who used Plenty of Fish and met somebody? Yeah, there's lots of those. Yeah, I know quite a few people in my life who that has happened to. Well, we have a lot of users. So we have so many users, in fact, that we could fill the Rogers Center 3,000 times. So that's a lot. We are, in fact, the #2 most downloaded app in the United States. It's pretty exciting. So lots of people. So let me tell you a little bit about some of the learnings I've had since I've joined. So I took a look at sort of where Plenty of Fish started and what drove its incredible success. And it was started back in 2003 by a really brilliant, interesting gentleman, Marcus Friend. And what made it different at the time was all the other dating apps were paid, and it was completely free and ad-supported. And it drove tons of word-of-mouth marketing and a lot of organic adoption. They didn't spend a dime on marketing, really, for the longest time. And that was great, and it was a really unique spot to be. Fast forward to today, the situation has changed quite a bit. Over on the right-hand side, there's a lot of other competitors who are free. And not only did that change, we have a much different marketplace we're competing against. Plenty of Fish is no longer completely free. We also have a subscription model. So the thing that made it successful was that it's big, it's free, and it works. Well, there's lots of other big sites that are free, work, I guess, to some degree. So that really propelled me on a mission to really understand who is the Plenty of Fish dater, and what makes the app compelling in today's marketplace. So the first thing I looked at is data, and what I discovered is Plenty of Fish, what's incredible about it is its diversity. It is by far the most diverse in terms of the people on it of any of the dating apps. So when it comes to education levels, we've got people that are really demographically representative of the United States and Canada. People who have high school, associate's degrees, master's degrees, and PhD. Everybody comes to Plenty of Fish. Another interesting thing is location. Most of the other dating apps, they skew very much towards large metropolitan areas. Whereas in Plenty of Fish, we have people in those areas, but we also have lots of people in small and mid-sized markets. The next thing that we undertook was a pretty large qualitative study across the United States. So we conducted over 50 in-depth, one-on-one, mostly in-person interviews with people to understand what makes the Plenty of Fish dater unique. And we asked, one of the interesting things we asked them is a question of, if you were to describe Plenty of Fish as a party, what kind of party would it be? And this is what we got. So we're basically a barbecue, a backyard barbecue. And if you compare it to the kind of adjectives used to describe the Tinder party or other types of dating app parties, you can see the difference is pretty clear, right? Like, we're open, we're inviting, we're nurturing, and that's really, the product reflects that. On Plenty of Fish, we have more conversations than on any other dating app, so it's a much more comfortable spot. And when we talk to our users, the things that they said about why they use Plenty of Fish are things like they felt it was more pressure-free. It was less intimidating than the other apps. And really, one of my favorite quotes was by this lady, Yvette, who said that, honestly, it made me feel good, and it gave her some of her confidence back. And that was really, really inspiring for me. And all of this came for me as a particularly poignant cultural moment where there's so much superficiality on social media, and people are kind of tired of all the BS that is out there. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with this lady, Celeste. She's she's got quite a lot of followers on Instagram because she's so genuine, and she points out some of the ridiculousness of what's going on out there. And none of this makes us happy, and it certainly doesn't help us find a better person when we're trying to find someone to date. And I'd like to think that if Celeste was on a dating app, she'd be on Plenty of Fish. So where does this take us? So stay tuned. There's lots of exciting things happening. We've taken all of this knowledge that we've learned about our journey of understanding the Plenty of Fish data. And we are working on really leaning into these insights and into these truths and coming up with an app that is even more reflective of all of these things. And ultimately, we hope to achieve our vision, which is to create the most dates of any other app by being the place where singles are free to be themselves, so the right people take notice. Thank you. All right, I need to, questions.
Now, BlogTO once called TechTO the best place in Toronto to find a date. And so we're getting a run for our money here with Plenty of Fish. Any questions for Malgosia?
I have one here. So you mentioned your other competitors like Tinder and Bumble, for example. How does your app handle, I guess, inappropriate behavior or harassment compared to the other bigger apps?
Well, I can speak to what we do, definitely. So we have a pretty vibrant community of people who do report inappropriate behavior, and we moderate all of the content that's reported and remove people. We also moderate all of our images. So that's something we introduced over the summertime right after I started, because we had a lot of inappropriate images that were disturbing to people. So now every single image that gets uploaded gets reviewed by a person to make sure that there's nothing offensive on the site.
Hi. You made a lot of comparisons to other dating apps in terms of comparing the data that you've gathered on yours to their data, like the number of conversations that people have. How do you get that data from your competitors?
Well, I can say that we are part of the Match Group. So the Match Group also owns Tinder, OkCupid, Match.com, Hinge. So I have access to a lot of data. So I'm able to look at all of their data as well. So so ultimately it's that in addition to other anecdotal data we have from third-party sources.
Hi there. I work in the financial industry. We do foreign exchange trading. And we have really pretty severe laws around know your customer laws with our onboarding process. And given your industry and some of the reasonably high profile problems that have been around people not being who they are, I'm wondering what the industry is thinking about in terms of identity verification and making sure the person you're talking to is who you think they are.
Yeah, that's a tough one, I would say, and I'm gonna, there's no really easy answer, because if you do put in checks that everyone has to verify their identity, it creates a ton of friction. As you can imagine, most people don't have a background check readily available. What we have leaned into is we formed a safety committee that include members of RAIN and Thorn and the Me Too movement to help advise us on user safety. And we are working with them to come up with a lot of guidelines and product changes to help ensure people can be as safe as they are on the app. A lot of it starts with what we would hope are good safety tips that people should be aware of, but based on research we've done, we released a pretty large study in the UK, people's awareness of how they should behave when meeting people in real life that they met online, and the awareness of what we would think is really good practice has been very low. So we're working really, to ensure that people know that when you meet someone on a dating app, you shouldn't go to their home on your first encounter. You should probably meet in a public place and things like that, making all of those guidelines present. And we are looking to work with third parties to provide as much sort of secure features in the future that I can't quite announce yet. But we do background checks on our paid members because they have, provided a lot of their information to make sure that we don't have people who shouldn't be on there.
Is there any regulatory pressure on you in any countries on that?
There is some, especially in the UK recently, that has come up. And so we are working with regulators in the UK to work through that. UK put in some age verification procedures for people in, I believe, the pornography industry. And so we are working with them to show all of the big efforts that we've taken. There is a lot of behind the scenes work that happens in terms of detecting of images and running them against databases and things like that. Especially, for me personally, especially, there's a huge focus on ensuring that there's no exploitation of minors on the platform, which is a big concern. So we work really, really hard with authorities and building our own systems to make sure that doesn't happen.
Thank you.